is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Limited Resources. This episode number 378. My name is Marshall. I'm one of your Limited Resources, and joining me on the line all the way from Denver, Colorado, it's Luis Scott-Vargas. Luis, how are you, sir? How goes?
I'm doing well. We got some sweet Modern Masters cards to talk about today.
Oh yeah, we've got our exclusive Limited Resources preview cards for Modern Masters 2017 edition. We're gonna lead off with those once we get through the initial stuff, and then we're gonna be talking a little bit about Modern Masters 2017 and kind of how those sets work. We're not going to go too deep, but just for people that aren't as familiar with it, we'll do a little overview of that, and then maybe we'll do a primer for it when all the cards are out. We're still kicking around that idea. Probably will happen. Then we're gonna take a chance to take a look at an article written by one of our Channel Fireball coworkers, Mike Sigrist, 5 keys to level up your drafting. And we both, we heard some feedback from this from our listeners and thought, well, this would be cool to go through each of the 5 points that Siggy brought up in his article. So we're going to do that. And then we've got a list of cards that Luis and I feel are overrated or underrated in the new the relatively new Ether Revolt format. So a jam-packed show for you this week. Before we get into it, of course, I want to mention our sponsor, channelfireball.com. They are the place to go for everything you need Magic related on the internet. They're going to have all the singles you want, all the sealed product, all the supplies, and they're all going to be in stock. They ship it out. They have great customer service. They stand by their product, and they're going to get that stuff to you quickly. While you're there, you can check out that free content. You know, I talk about it all the time because it relates so much to what we do here on LR. But this article by Mike Sigrist, I mean, you know, Siggy's a player of the year. I mean, this guy's, you know, one of the better Magic players around, and he's an excellent limited player. And he's took the time to sit down and write an article about the 5 keys to leveling up your drafting. I mean, this is right up our alley. This is the type of stuff that I love to read and I love to see. And this is free on channelfireball.com. You can go there and you're going to find stuff like this. If you're into Constructed, you're going to find all of that too. Draft videos. I got a bunch of Ether Revolt draft videos. Luis, I know you've been drafting it up for CFB as well. And you can watch all of those, again, completely free every day on channelfireball.com. Also, you can support the show directly via Patreon. Patreon's a cool website that lets you give back to the people who make things to make your life a little better. It's that simple. If you appreciate what we do, if you find that you've gotten some value, monetary or otherwise, out of listening to the podcast, this is the way to give back. It's a nice uniform way. You know, it's not kind of a abstract like, hey, donate here. It's just, you know what you're getting, you know what you're doing. You control it however you want, how much you want to give, how often. You can set monthly cap to make sure you stay within budget. And it's real easy to get set up at patreon.com/limited resources. Of course, one of the big benefits is you get to submit questions for our Patreon question of the week. We've got that from Hogan Long here, who says, I see at Grand Prix New Jersey, they're going to have an interesting new format, sealed box, otherwise known as box sealed. Crack a box and build a 40-card deck, says Hogan. Any ideas about the metagame for such an event? I'm thinking fast red or fast white. Of course, there are some rares that might change that. What do you think? And I just had to bring this up because, Luis, I've done one of these. I did a box sealed. I just had to. It was just too stupid to not try it out. And I can tell you it's very, very, very stupid. It's an embarrassment of riches. You end up, so it's what Hogan said. You literally open up a booster box of 36 packs and you build one 40-card deck out of that. So just think about it in terms of packs. If you get 23 playable cards and 17 lands out of the deal, there's still going to be an additional 13 packs that you just don't even use a single card from at all. So it is dumb. You have to cut first pickable cards from your deck by the time you get to the end of it. But the cool part is that the decks end up being very powerful and very synergistic. They don't look like anything else you've ever seen from Limited. They actually approximate what I would consider more like a block deck or something like that, which is kind of interesting. But I'll tell you what, the deck build portion's a little cumbersome. You have to open up every single pack in a box, sort them somehow, and then narrow it down to just 23 cards. Just as an example, the deck that I played, Luis, it had 3 Planeswalkers in it.
Yeah, I remember you playing this. I was actually going to ask, did you do this kind of event? And I have no idea about this event. Honestly, I've never played anything like it. My guess is efficient cards and 2-for-1s are probably the best way to go. My first assumption is that aggro actually isn't good, but having not played this, I don't know. It feels like just build something sweet. Like
that is definitely the idea. It's also nonsense. Like the format is complete nonsense. It's just stupid. It's way too many cards to try to narrow down. So have fun with it. Don't overthink it. But do try to stay on a pathway. Don't just put the best cards in. You actually can pick, if you want to make an artifact deck, it can just literally be all artifacts if you want. Like you can do some really silly stuff. And those are the decks that I saw that were doing the best, were the ones that were the most honed down into a strategy where you're maximizing synergy and not just raw card power. But I have fun with it for sure. All right. Also part of the Patreon, not only do you get to submit questions for the question of the week, you also get entered into our giveaways. And I've got a giveaway here. I've got in my hands a Dual Decks Jace versus Chandra, which has some cool stuff in it, including I see there's an Ancestral Vision in here. Factor Fiction. Do you like that one, Luis?
Factor Fiction is quite good, yes.
What about FTK?
Flametongue Kavu, also a pretty good all-star.
Which one's better, Factor Fiction or FTK?
In general, I would say Factor Fiction's better, but I think, well, actually, they both were very impactful in their heyday, I suppose.
How about Fireball? .com.
I like Fireball. Yes, Fireball. That's more nostalgic value than actual gameplay value, though.
True. And then of course you get Jace Beleren and Chandra Nalaar here as well. Anyway, the winner of this Jace versus Chandra dual decks is Nathan Levin Aspenson. Nathan, thank you so much. He comes from North Carolina, and I'll be sending this off to you, Nathan. Thank you so much for your support. Next week, by the way, I found something cool. I found a From the Vault Angels. It's still in its original box here in the vault, as it were, and I'm going to be giving that away next week.
I will say, when you talk about the dual decks, someone posted on Facebook, like talking about the Warriors versus Raptors game or something like that, and Paulo Vitor was like, I don't know if this is a sports thing or like new dual decks. Oh no, it was Warriors versus Wizards. That's what.
Oh, that's insane.
He's like, I don't know, if Warriors versus Wizards is dual decks or some kind of sports thing.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, the Golden State Warriors versus the Washington Wizards. So.
That's great. Yeah, but From the Vault Angels next week, and again, that if you are a patron, you are eligible for that. It's that simple. That leads us now to our Crack-a-Pack, where we've got a pack of Aether Revolt that was given to us by Virginia, who says that we got to play against her son one time, and I actually remember playing against him as well, and she even sent a picture. His name was Paul, and this was at a GP that CFB ran, and he kind of smashed me, if I remember correctly. Anyway, thank you very much, Virginia, for the pack. I really appreciate it, and let's get into this thing. I hope this is a good pack. I don't want anything lame here. Hinterland Drake.
It's a fine card. I'm happy to first pick it, but I'll play Hinterland Drake pretty much every time.
Alley Evasion, no. Chandra's Revolution. I like that card.
The front runner.
Yep. Fenhauler.
I do like Fenhauler quite a bit. I would take Chandra's Revolution over it, though.
I don't like Fenhauler. Overrated. Scrounging Bandar. I like this one.
Underrated. Scrounging Bandar. Still not as good as Chandra's Revolution, but it's actually pretty close.
That's really close. Yeah, I don't know. That's a close. I'm gonna look at the rest of the pack, and I'm gonna let that one marinate. But I might take Scrounging Bandar over the Revolution.
Well, if you marinate the Scrounging Bandar, then you cast Chandra's Revolution on it. That's perfect. That's exactly
monkey brains. Implement of Combustion.
Probably, a better card than it looked like at first, but still, I think worse than Chandra's Revolution.
Yeah, for sure. Verdant Automaton. Ugh. Here's one that you like a lot more than me. We'll talk about this in a little bit, but Augmenting Automaton. I
mean, I do like it more than you, but I don't like it more than any three of the cards you've already named.
You know what I think about it? You
think it's terrible?
That's what I think about it.
There. I heard that.
Done. That one's in the garbage can. We're not picking that guy. Ether Inspector.
Not a card that I'm particularly interested in.
All right, now this brings us to our uncommons, and how lucky we've actually got 4 of them. We've got a foil uncommon here. Ooh, first one's pretty nice. Untethered Express. Choo choo! Get out of the way.
It's going to be a pretty high bar. Untethered Express is just one of the best first picks in the set.
Yeah, in fact, I don't think that there is an uncommon that I would take over Untethered Express, even Ridgescale Tusker.
Yes, pick one, pack one. I think Untethered Express is probably just the best uncommon because it's just colorless. But yeah, I do think Ridgescale Tusker is a better card.
I agree. I agree. So let's see if we get even close. Deadeye Harpooner? No.
Nope.
Well, this one's pretty good. Vengeful Rebel. Card solid.
I like Vengeful Rebel. It's still not as good as Untethered Express, as we've already kind of... Yeah.
What about our foil, Tezzeret's Touch? It's the opposite of Untethered Express. It's gold card.
Yeah, it's a gold card and it requires artifacts, which I think we covered last time we talked about it. But yeah I'm not taking Tezzeret's Touch early here.
No, we like to talk about setup cost on the podcast. That's just a way to describe how hard it is to make the card do what you expect it to do. And I think that these two cards are a perfect example of describing a card with relatively high setup cost versus a card with lower setup cost. And Tezzeret's Touch being a gold card means that in order for this card to do what you want it to do, you have to end up in blue-black. Basically, specifically blue-black, as this isn't a particularly great splash either. So, not that it's terrible on a splash, but it's not, a go-to splash card. So, if that's the case, then that has to happen. If you don't end up in blue-black, then you either have to pick up cards to splash it, or you're just not playing Tezzeret's Touch at all, which is the more likely scenario. On top of that, even if you are in blue-black, you need to make sure that you draft enough artifacts, particularly 1 and 2 mana artifacts that you can put Tezzeret's Touch on to really maximize on it. That's a lot to ask. If you look at Untethered Express, there's basically no deck in the format that it wouldn't get played in, and it's colorless, meaning that every time you pick Untethered Express, you're very likely to play it in your deck, high 90s%. I really just can't think of a deck that wouldn't run it. And so that means...
More than high 90s, I think you just...
You literally just always run it, right? Yeah, so you just literally always run Untethered Express, and if that's the case... that means that the setup cost is relatively low. Now, vehicles, interestingly, have an inherent setup cost of needing a creature, but that's heavily dependent on what the crew cost is. And the crew cost on Untethered Express is 1. It's the lowest crew cost that they have. So this one has the lowest possible setup cost as far as as far as vehicles go. And on top of that, it's colorless. So setup cost wise, there's a big gap here, and that really does put Untethered Express significantly ahead. And I'll tell you what, this rare is not knocking it off the perch here. It's Aid from the Cowl. Boo.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that one.
No. So I would take Untethered Express out of this pack. I don't think it's close either. I think that, we did pick out a few decent cards, the Vengeful Rebel, the Bandar, the Chandra's Revolution, but none of these really can hold up to the Untethered Express as a pack one, pick one.
I would say that if the Untethered Express wasn't there, I would be snapping up a Vengeful Rebel. But, given the fact that the Express is there, you should tether it to your deck as soon as possible.
Agreed. All right. So Untethered Express, I'll put this Aid from the Cowl and the foil Tezzeret's Touch in the next giveaway that we have for our Crack-A-Packs that we like to do. That's right. We give away all the rares on those to a patron every month and a half or so. Okay. Let's talk Modern Masters 2017 edition, Luis. We've got a couple of exclusive limited resources preview cards. If you follow us on Twitter, or if you're on the Patreon, or if you check out the LR blog on lrcast.com, you will have already seen these. But if you haven't, we've got 2 awesome cards. I mean, these are just like right up my alley. When I got the email for these for the show, I was like, yes. And the first one, they're both common, is one of my favorite cards ever, Mistraven. 2 blue for a 2/2 with flying, and when it enters a battlefield, you return target creature to its owner's hand. It feels so good to put up an evasive threat and unsummon unsummon a creature as well. This is just straight up one of my favorite cards ever.
Well, it helped because it was first, printed in Avacyn Restored, which gave it not very many powerful cards to compare itself against, and it just happens to be one of the best, Mana War type creatures ever printed. So, yeah, for limited at least. Mistraven, a swing and a miss.
No, it's a swing and a hit. But yeah, this is a type of card that you can use in a tempo deck. You can also use it in a control deck to help buy yourself some time, put up a blocker, put up some pressure. And it works particularly well with the next card that we have, which is called Momentary Blink. This one is 1 and a white for an instant. It says exile target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. But the really cool part is that it has flashback. And the flashback cost is actually 3 and a blue. And so that means, of course, that you can cast it from your graveyard for its flashback cost and then exile it. And it's an instant. So you can do this anytime you want. And, this is a very clear kind of 1-2 punch of playing a Mistraven. Your opponent picks up their 3-drop or whatever. And they're like, oh, fine, I'll replay it next turn. And then on your turn, you attack them with your Mistraven and say go. And then they replay their 3-drop and you say, on end step, I'll momentary blink my Mistraven, return your creature to your hand, hit you again, play my land, and now I've got flashback for another Mistraven. That's the third time that Mistraven will have entered the battlefield that game. And your opponent's just going to be pulling their hair out. And God forbid they play anything like an aura that tries to make their creature better, or, sometimes even combat tricks and things like that you can interrupt with a 2-card combo like this. But momentary blink basically just says, any creature that you play that has an enter the battlefield effect is something that you are paying much more attention to now, because this blink can just buy you back that thing twice.
Yeah, and I would expect to see a lot of cards that work well with it in Modern Masters, because in Modern Masters, the limited archetypes tend to be a pretty high power level, and the cards themselves tend to be a pretty high power level. So I would imagine Momentary Blink is going to find a good home there.
Yeah. This card, Momentary Blink, was it in Time Spiral or one of those sets, or where was it originally printed?
It was originally in Time Spiral.
It was in Time Spiral. Okay, so which is interesting because the only place I've ever played it is Cube. Because I didn't play Time Spiral. That was before I came. So I don't know. Am I overrating it maybe? Because in Cube it's completely stupid. Actually, you know what? And I lied. That isn't the only place. The one other place I played it is Pauper. When I first started playing Magic Online, I had a Pauper deck that I had gotten from a website, and it was basically a Momentary Blink deck. It was like Muldrifter and all that kind of stuff, trying to blink them. So my take on Momentary Blink is that it's absurd in that way. And the only other place I've really played it is Cube, where it's also absurd in a medium format like Modern Masters, which isn't quite as powerful as Cube, but is much stronger than a normal limited environment. What would you expect power level wise from a card?
I would expect Blink to be pretty good. You don't need that many enter the battlefield effects to make the card good, because it naturally dodges removal, and the fact that you can flash it back means that you're just getting multiple uses out of it. So if you do have a card like Mistraven, obviously just goes nuts. And even if you don't, the card was good. It was good, and it was good in any white blue deck would happily play 2 Momentary Blinks in Time Spiral. So I always thought the card was great. So
okay.
And it's for splashing, I recall splashing the flashback basically. So I think that you're gonna be pretty happy with this card in Modern Masters.
Yeah, and of course the other thing to remember is that it's not just about re-triggering into the battlefield. You can also save your creatures from removal spells. You can block with the creature. Your opponent goes, okay, I'm going to use a combat trick to make sure your creature dies, and you could just blink yours and be like, never mind, to trade for a card. So there are a lot of ways that you can trade for cards with Momentary Blink. So yeah, that's it. Mistraven and Momentary Blink are our previews, and the previews are really going to start flowing for this set soon, as it'll be out in a few weeks, I think. Let's talk a little bit about Modern Masters style sets, just because it is coming up and it is something that's relevant to our listeners, though Luis and I try not to go too crazy on the Modern Masters sets because they're very expensive to draft. The booster packs are like $10 usually. And so I think that, for the most part, for our listenership, they'll probably get in one draft or maybe 2 or maybe 0. That's probably the most common is 0 or 1.
Well, 0 is almost assuredly the most common, I think.
Yeah, that's probably true. And so if that's the case, we don't want to do full set reviews and super deep stuff on these sets that are only around for a little while and then they're gone. But at the same time, people are going to be drafting and people are going to be playing them. A lot of our listeners play on Magic Online, where it's a bit more accessible, or at least it seems to be. And it is worth talking about. So why don't we just take a quick look at what these Modern Masters sets are about? The first thing, of course, is that they're all reprints, right? These are all sets that don't have any new cards in them at all. They're all hand-picked cards from older sets, which is, that's a totally different design aspect than you'd get from a normal set.
Yeah, you don't have an actual design part. You have development because you in a lot of senses, because you're not creating new cards, you're just selecting the cards you want to appear, and the goals for this set are also a little different than normal sets. Unsurprisingly, part of the goal of Modern Masters, it's literally in the name, is to put a lot of modern staples into circulation. So that's why you're seeing these, Liliana of the Veils and whatnot in Damnations and Goblin Guides in this set. They do contribute to limited, of course, but a lot of the rares and mythics that you'll see, and even in the uncommons, Might of Old Crosa, for example, it was like a $10 card. So
wow.
So having, you're going to see cards selected for their constructed value at a higher rate than you would in like a normal set. But that still doesn't mean that the limited format can't be entertaining and robust. I've really enjoyed playing previous Modern Masters.
Yeah, and that's really the cool part about it is that when they go through and they pick all of these, yes, I'm sure that they have certain cards that they want to try to get into circulation or whatever for the reasons that you said, Luis. But there's, a couple hundred cards in this set or whatever, right? It's not the type of thing where, they just pick a bunch of constructed staples, jam them in some packs and sell them. They put a lot of tender loving care into getting these draft formats because they view it as kind of I think they view it like as a 1-2 punch. Like, hey, we can get these cards in circulation, but also we can just make an awesome limited format for you and me, and I think that they take it very, very seriously as well, as, trying to get these formats really fun and balanced. And generally they've been really successful with them too. I mean, the original Modern Masters was super fun. The next one where you could draft 5 color was great. And this one, from what I've seen, looks really stacked too. And it looks really fun. The one thing I did want to ask you about, you said you're kind of taking the design element out and leaving it to all development. Do you view that as like a restriction in the sense that like, if there was a card that you really just kind of wanted, that would make that would fit into the set exactly and do what you needed to do, would it be easier just to design a new card to fit that role? Or is it, is there enough stuff out there, in the modern card base that you can reach out and find pretty much what you need?
Well, it's kind of both where, yes, it would be nice if you could design, there's more restrictions, right? You're not allowed to make new cards. But on the other hand, it is a little easier that you just don't have to make new cards. You can just pick from all the other cards. And you also kind of don't run into the problem of like, wow, I really want a card like Momentary Blink, but it's going to be too similar, or like Mistraven, it's going to be too similar. You could just use Mistraven or Momentary Blink. And the fact that you're just picking cards instead of making them does mean that, like the cost to develop the set is certainly lower than a normal expansion.
Okay. And then the other thing I wanted to mention about it before is that the cards tend to be very powerful. Your average power level on a card tends to be much higher than it would in a normal set. These are just commons. Momentary Blink and Mistraven are just commons in this set. And like, these aren't going to be the 2 best commons in the set or anything like that either. Where if you look at like Mistraven in the set that it was printed in Avacyn Restored, like Luis said, I mean, it was one of the better commons in the set, and I'm sure Momentary Blink saw heavy play. You said you'd play 2 of them in most of your decks in Time Spiral. That was a powerful format too. So, these are decks that end up being a lot more on rails, generally speaking. And what I mean by that is they're much more linear archetypes rather than kind of piles of good cards. They tend to really reward synergistic drafting. And that is something that, comes together sometimes in regular sets, but doesn't always quite get there. And in these Modern Masters sets, they really are geared towards that. The pile of good cards thing just doesn't seem to hold up that well when somebody's playing a heavy artifact themed deck or an affinity deck, or, in this case, maybe a blue-white blink deck or whatever they end up being. When those synergies come together, they tend to overpower, hey, here's an efficient creature or something like that. And you'll see those type of cards kind of fall to the side in favor of more synergistic decks. So that's the kind of thing that we're going to be looking for, as we get more and more of the cards from Modern Masters.
Oh yeah, I would totally expect it to be way more synergy than raw power level. Though Modern Master sets, I guess, have a decent amount of both. Just looking at previous Modern Master sets, you almost always just drafted certain specific archetypes, not just like blue-white pile of good cards. It was like blue-white, flyer blinks or affinity, I guess, was the last Modern Masters, or like, green-white tokens. It was not just like a green-white deck with a curve. It was specific things. So seeing Momentary Blink makes me think that that's going to be at least a heavy component of the theme for blue-white, but we'll find out. And
the last thing, they tend to be sweet. These sets just tend to be really fun.
So, yes, they do.
So I'm looking forward to it. And like I said, Luis and I will talk about it, but there's a good chance that we'll do a primer show on it once we kind of get the cards out underneath us and get a couple of drafts in or get our hands on some of the cards. Okay, so that's it for our previews. I'll see you later, Miss Raven. Our main topic today, again, our friend Mike Sigrist wrote a sweet article. The link for that article will be in the show notes for this episode as well. So you can click on that and check it out if you'd like. Again, titled 5 Keys to Level Up Your Drafting. And this was something that, I don't think that Sigrist was trying to say these are the top 5 things to do necessarily.
No, certainly not.
Yeah, but what he was saying is that these are some key points that maybe you misunderstand or that you're not, fully grasping. And he went pretty deep on these. And I really thought these were cool. And like I said, a couple of our listeners said, hey, can you guys talk about some of these on the show? Because, they're also not without controversy. I mean, everybody has their own take on limited. And we thought it would be cool to give a chance to kind of touch on what Mike was saying here and give our take on it. And again, link in the show notes so that you can read the original if you want to hear it right from Mike. And I'll tell you, he's a very, very, very good drafter. So anything he puts out about limited, I would listen. And, we've had him on the show too, and he was great. All right, so let's get into these. There's 5 things to cover. The first one is the person to your left does matter. And this is a really interesting way to start things off because the general thinking is that the person on your left matters a lot. And then you have shows like ours that try to notch that down a little, right? Like you and I, Luis, will often say, look, I'm going to take the best card out of the pack. I'm not going to try so hard to influence what the person on my left is doing. And we, of course, keep that within range. We're not saying that the person on your left doesn't matter at all. We just don't want to overdo it, right? We don't want to have our listeners make the mistake of, taking a worse card for some reason about trying to send better signals to the left when it's much better just to take the good card out of that first pack. But Sigrist here is kind of pushing back a little and saying, now, hold on a minute. We do need to remember that the person does matter. What
he's trying to say is, in a specific case, you should pay attention to what you've been passing because it can be valuable. If you want to back cut is actually the phrase he used. And we've talked about this before. So the reason that is the strategy he's advocating is, let's say pack 1, you take a bunch of white cards. And so you're pretty sure you've cut off white and white's being open. But you also notice that that the person to your right is cutting red really hard. You haven't seen a playable red card. What you can do, and this is why it matters who's to your left, is you can be pretty confident that pack 2 is going to have a bunch of red cards for you. And then even though red is cut, it's not happening in pack 3, you can subsist off red for pack 2 and then white for pack 3. And so for that reason, you have to be very careful about paying attention to what the person on your left could be doing. That part I agree with. The part that a lot of people go wrong with is paying too much attention and doing the classic, like, I opened a pack with like 3 great red cards and 1 decent black card, and I'm going to take the black card because I don't want to fight over red. Like, that's the level 1, that's where everyone starts.
Right.
And they always want to do that. And we all say don't do that. What Sigrist is saying, and what I guess we're not really disagreeing with, is that if you can identify a color that's being cut, even if it's not by you, you can assume the person to your left will be passing you that color. And if you have basically, if you can get 1 color in packs 1 and 3 and 1 color in pack 2, that's still plenty to draft a good deck.
Sure. And I mean, and I think that we're like in this case, yeah, I mean, I want to echo what Mike's saying. I mean, he's correct. Like, the person does matter to your left. It's just a matter of getting it to the point that you understand fully how much they matter and how they matter. And that's what he does there.
It's just difficult because, like, how much do you weigh this and what the reasons are? I just want to be very clear that, like, they matter because you can figure out what you could expect to see in pack 2 and take advantage of it. What it doesn't matter is you shouldn't worry too much about the signals you're sending them.
Right. And I mean, and what you mean by worry it's not that you shouldn't be aware.
You should definitely be aware.
Yeah, you should be aware. It's just that you shouldn't let it dictate taking worse cards over better cards. That's the thing. People overvalue that. And that's the thing. But I like that Mike is reminding us, hey, it's not, we might preach that you don't want to overvalue it, but they do matter. They're there. They're a human being picking cards and affecting the way that your draft comes out. So yeah, keep that in mind. Next one, he has perception versus reality, the power level of cards. What is he talking about here?
So here it's what you think a card is worth and what the general public thinks a card is worth.
Yes.
And we're going to actually kind of touch on that with overrated, underrated cards. I mean, clearly, when we say overrated and underrated, we mean people at large, the drafting masses and or conventional wisdom. And so it is relevant knowing when your perception of a card is different than everyone else's or most other people's, but it's not very common that it's big enough to matter. So basically, you need it to be a pretty big difference. Like if you think a card is like a 6 out of 10 and everyone else thinks the card is a 6.5 out of 10, that doesn't really matter because that's close enough. That you're not going to get much value out of paying attention to that difference. On the other hand, if you think a card is like a 7 out of 10 and everyone else thinks it's like a 3 out of 10, yes, now you're talking about a substantial difference, and that matters for a couple reasons. If you see that card late and you value it higher than everyone else, you have to be aware that it is not a sign. So I can use a pretty good example, I guess. Actually, Journey into Nyx was the format. This is Theros block.
Okay.
Sudden Storm, the like 3 and a blue tap 2 creatures scry 1 instant.
Mm-hmm.
We Team Channel Fireball thought this card was quite good. We thought it was one of the better blue commons. We thought it was a card we always wanted like multiple copies of if we could get them. The average person in that Pro Tour did not think that card was good.
Right.
It was pretty what we thought underrated. The problem was we didn't realize that at the time as well as we should have. And so when we saw a 5th pick Sudden Storm, we think, oh, blue's open. That wasn't actually necessarily the case because someone might be passing it because they just didn't think the card was good. So the person to your right could be blue and be passing you even like a 7th pick one of those because they just didn't think the card was good. And there we were being harmed by the fact that we thought this card was better than other people. So we didn't – when we saw it, we thought it meant something that it didn't mean. And
that's what you're saying because it doesn't like you're still going to take the card that you think is best, even if it happens to be in that spot, but it's how you perceive what that person's handing you that you're actually affecting here. Like you're saying this is not a signal. Like you're talking about reading signals, right?
Yeah. You're getting the wrong signal.
Yeah.
You are like, imagine you lived in, some world where Lightning Bolt was a common and you thought the card was great, but everyone else thought it was unplayable, right? This is some bizarre world. When you get a 7th pick Lightning Bolt, it does not mean that red is open because you think the card is great and everyone else thinks it's awful.
Right.
So the person passing it to you, and it doesn't think they're sending you a signal, and so they could be cutting red. That's an extreme example. That wouldn't actually happen, but that can happen with some cards. I mean, you do have cards you think are better than everyone else thinks, or a lot of other people think.
Well, and the thing to remember is that everybody has their own different view on it. Like a good example of this is if you ever just go to a local game store and draft, there's always some person who's like, why is this still in the pack? And you're like, God, I passed you that. Like, what could it even be that person's talking about? And then, when you're doing the build, you'll be like, hey, what card was it that you got? And they'll hold it up and it's like some mediocre, they just think it's great for some reason. They had a good draft with it or whatever. And they took it as a huge sign that like either everybody at the table was stupid, for passing it, or that it was a signal in the draft that this color was open. Yet neither were true. Like in this case, they were just wrong and the card isn't as good as they think. But that's just how this works. Everybody has their own opinions on it. And I like that you started off, Luis, with the difference between a small difference and a large difference in the differences of the cards. Cause that is a really important thing. Cause people love to talk about which card's better than another, but they don't like to talk about how much better it is. So you and I might have an argument on the show where it's like, this card's better than that one. And no, this one's definitely better. And we can start, busting out the hyperbole and doing all this stuff. But at the end of the day, we might be like, well, I think it's like 8% better. It's like, okay, whatever. Like, you can pick either way, there's a margin of error there that we're probably hitting. So, I think that, when it comes to these signals, that's kind of what to focus on, because when you get the cards, you can't control it anyway. So even if you think, well, wow, this card's great and I got it 8th pick, it's like, well, you couldn't really affect that, right? It's just a matter of you understanding that that's not necessarily a signal.
No, and it goes the other way too. If you pass a card that you think is bad or you don't think is very good, but other people think is good, then you are also sending a signal that you did not intend to send. So to put it within a real world example, a Bone Splitter in Mirrodin, this is a 1-mana artifact equipment. You pay 1 to equip and gives +2/+0. I did not think that card was particularly good. The way I drafted that format, I didn't think Bone Splitter was great. It was fine, but it wasn't great. Everyone else thought it was great and would routinely take it in the first couple picks. So if I pass a bone splitter, I should be aware that the person to my left is going to see that as a signal. I guess that's a colorless card, so it's not a great example in that. But
no, it
whatever.
is. It is still a good signal. It's not necessarily a signal on because it's colorless, but it's going to raise their eyebrows. They're going to be like, "Wow, he's passing me this."
Right. And so when you pass a card that you don't think is good, but you know other people think is good, you have to be aware that that's a signal. It's like if Druid of the Cowl was the example that Sigrist used in his article, because everyone knows that card is overrated. So
little foreshadowing there.
He's saying that if he passes a Druid of the Cowl, even though he knows the card isn't very good, how he given how he drafts, he knows that the person to his left might see it as a signal. Oh, a 7th pick Druid of the Cowl, green is open. Mm-hmm. So whether a card is worth more than the public thinks or less than the public thinks, when you take a look at it, you have to know that you're either not getting the signal you think you're getting, or you're sending a signal that you don't think you're sending.
Yeah. All right. Next one, 3rd of 5 on Sigrist's 5 keys to level up your drafting this is kind of an interesting one. Check for missing rarities early in pack 1.
You should do this. This is a good practice. It's best practices is to see, a rare's gone. I don't have a ton of information. Oh, an uncommon's gone. When you see high tier commons, it's a lot more useful. When you see a pack with nothing great in it, it kind of doesn't matter what rarity they took, because you don't really know. It doesn't help you. So just be aware that if you see 4th pick, Ether Chaser, Shock, Daring, Demolition, Caught in the Brights are all in the pack. Yes, you could look at the rares and uncommons, see what you're missing, and you'll probably see a bunch of them missing. But if you see a pack, 3rd pick that's all like mediocre cards, it kind of doesn't matter what rarity they took. You're not getting much information. So it's true you should do this, but you have to be aware of what it's getting for you.
Yeah, and one of the things that does come up occasionally for people that are still sort of sorting out this whole rarity thing is it can be useful to tell you what card isn't a signal, like especially the 2nd pick. Now, we warn against putting too much emphasis on any one pack as far as signaling goes, but I've definitely seen people think that even pack 1 pick 2, you passed me a Ridge Scale Tusker, or you passed me a Malfish Revolutionary, I'm picking up what you're putting down. Green's open. Right. I get it. Wink, wink. I know what's happening here. Right. I'm getting past green. The person on my right's trying to put me into green, these different weird constructs that people come up with for this. But I think if you looked at a pack, and let's say somebody did pass you a premium card like a Malfish Revolutionary, something, along those lines, a really good card. And then you look to see what rarity was missing, you would often see that the rare was gone. And if the rare is gone, that'll usually just say you know nothing about this pack and there's no signal to be gained here, because they could have easily just opened up a bomb rare in that color, a colorless bomb rare. It could be Ether Seer Harvester. I'm passing you a pack that has, a bunch of a gifted Etherborn and a, Malfish Revolution, like some premium uncommons. Those aren't signals if the rare's gone. And so that's the one thing that I think if you're newer, you can start to kind of train your brain to just double check to see what rarity's gone. And so you can start to filter out a little bit about what is a signal and what isn't. Similar to what you just said, Luis, if it's the 4th pick even, and there's a really good common still in the pack and you're thinking, this must be open, but there's 2 uncommons and a rare missing, and maybe if we wind this back to 3rd pick or something, if there's 2 uncommons and a rare missing, even if you're getting a Daring Demolition or something pretty solid, in that pick, it still doesn't really dictate that that's a strong signal. That I would lower my signal sound on that. I mean, I might still take it, but I just wouldn't be like, well, black's open, we're moving in. I would just sort of look at it where if there was multiple commons missing and there was just junky uncommons and a junk rare, and I got that 3rd or 4th pick Daring Demolition, then I would actually think, okay, well, this is a strong data point. Like, people could have taken this and they took other commons over it. And this is one of the better commons. So black's probably pretty open to my right. Again, if they're up against, uncommons or rares, then that might not be the case. So I actually kind of use it in the reverse way, just to see, if something's not a signal and I should be thinking that it is.
Right.
This is a really interesting one. Number 4, when the stakes are high, understand and embrace your bias. And Sigrist is basically saying, look, most people bias in a certain direction, speaking mainly to colors, right? And he's saying, look, when you're in like a big moment, right? PTQ top 8, or, you're a day 2 of a Grand Prix, or you're at the Pro Tour or something like that. He's saying, look, you have biases based on repetition and based on comfort level. This is not the time to try to work out your weaknesses, right? This is not the time to try out colors that you're not as familiar with or that you don't like as much, just because there's so much on the line. And he actually advocates for acquiescing to those biases and to just sort of sticking to the plan that you know best, because, this is your chance that, if you have a lot on the line, it's not a good time to try to push out and try out new color pairs or new strategies.
And we like you said, we've advocated that if you're in a situation where you don't have enough practice or confidence with, the things you haven't tried yet, but that does kind of run counter to kind of what we're doing here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Our focus tends to be on long-term value and just overall improvement. So yes, this is good short-term advice. And if you know that you're going to, draft in a high stakes environment, or like you're going to a tournament on Saturday and the top 8 is draft and you make top 8 and you're like, well, I've only drafted 3 times, but I drafted blue-white twice. Yes, your highest value play in that draft might be to draft blue-white. We would like to prepare you for you to sit down and draft the highest value play, period. And that could be whatever's open in that draft. So short term, this is good. This is good value. Long term, the goal is to eliminate bias. And I know that is difficult because I've tried to do that myself. And as you have and we still have some remnants of it because that's just how it works.
Yeah, but I mean, you really can. And I think that this is more of a stopgap for if you don't know the format as well as you should or could, or if you haven't put in the reps, that you'd like to. One way that I do find this to be useful as well, like one way to use this idea is in the context of tiebreakers on picks. You and I on the show, Luis, often talk about, less important things than just like the outright power level of the card being like a tiebreaker, on a card like, well, there's this black card that's pretty good and there's this red card that's pretty good. And you might say something like, well, I think red's a little bit deeper of a color in the format, and so I'll just take the red card. That's like a tiebreaker to me, where 2 cards are basically a tie. And I could see this being one of those tiebreakers, right? The tiebreaker could just simply be, well, I'm more comfortable playing red. Like I like to beat down. I like to get things out of the way and get my opponent dead, so I'll take the red card here. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I will say that, if you're doing a practice style drafts, like when you're drafting on Magic Online or with your friends, that I would definitely do the opposite. I'm sure Mike would say the same thing, which is to push into those other colors that you're not as good with and that you don't understand as well, and really just dive into those. And yeah, it might be a little rocky, but hey, you can take a couple of losses in a random draft on Magic Online or against your buddies if you're helping to improve your overall skill level for the long term. It's well worth it. So, but he's right. Like if you're sitting there at the top 8, like it's a really bad time to try to learn what a new color pair does. You're going to set yourself back pretty far. And he's probably right that your win percentage will be higher overall, at least for that one tournament. If you just stick with the path that you know the best.
Yeah. Basically the time to practice and try new things is not in the top 8 of an event that you care about winning, but we would like you to be able to get the max value out of every event you play. So that is, while this is true, you shouldn't lean on this in not high stakes situations. Like, in fact, you should do the opposite, like you said.
Yeah. Also of note, Mike also mentioned, look, I'm not saying sit down and think, well, I like black red, so I'll just draft black red because that's my comfort level. He acknowledges, look, that's taking it too far. Like that's just a bad strategy. So don't, mistake that. And again, I'll have the link in there so you can read all of his words. I just didn't want to think that maybe we framed it that way. Last one, context matters. So Mike's talking about while you're drafting, the context of what you've drafted and what you could draft matters. It matters a lot. And he gives a couple of examples, mainly like one of them being like you've got let's say that there's a sideboard card or a decent card that you've opened a whole bunch of. Pack 1, Pack 2, Pack 4, Pack 5 all had a copy of it, and it's not a particularly high demand card. Well, you're probably going to get one of those back. And when you're making your picks over the next 5 to 6 picks, you can plan on getting back one of those cards. And so you don't need to take those cards that are similar in those spots. And, beyond that, he also gives a couple of interesting kind of anecdotes here or interesting examples about, which type of cards that he's passed and how the picks that he makes now might be affected by the ones that he's passed. Mainly cards that you can wheel, right? Cards that might come back can be a big one. He mentioned, picking between a Defiant Salvager and a Renegade Wheelsmith. When he's already got black red with a few with only 2 or 3 black cards, but he's also passed a couple copies of Wrangle, right? Which is, a good combo with a card like Defiant Salvager. So that might be enough to get him back and just say, I'm just going to stay in black, take the Defiant Salvager and wheel these 2 Wrangles, and I can kind of make a deck work from that. Where maybe if he hadn't passed the Wrangles, maybe he just takes the Renegade Wheelsmith and tries to make a much better card work than the Defiant Salvager. And so these are the type of things that he's trying to contextualize while he's in the middle of his draft and trying to keep that sort of subtext alive, rather than just looking at it as a snapshot on, well, which one of these cards is more powerful, or which one of these cards am I more likely to play? There's a lot more going on than just that.
Yeah, I think that this is a true point. I think that you should just be thinking about this whenever you're drafting. So it's hard to get like a concise takeaway here.
Yes, I agree.
But yes, it is true that context does in fact matter.
Yes. So that's why you put it number 5. So that's it. We just wanted to take a minute to sort of go over each of these and give our own take on them. But like I said, you can read it for yourself from Mike, and I'll mention it again, but anything he puts out, I think is worth reading. I think Mike's a really straightforward drafter in the sense that like he just says exactly how he does it. Sometimes I think people get a little caught up in the theory behind it, and you'll be like, well, what do you think about this format? And they'll say, I think about this format like I think about any format. I try to maximize this and I try to do that and I play all the colors and I can play any format. And it's like, yeah, but you don't. Like, I bet you if we analyzed your actual draft decks, we would see patterns that were much stronger and more human than you're letting on. Where Mike, he's much more straightforward. He's just like, look, sometimes you need to do the thing that's not the perfect, optimal long-term play because of the circumstances. And, I find that honesty refreshing as well, just because you do what you got to do to win these tournaments,
And Mike is a fantastic limited player. I had the privilege of teaming with him before for testing for the Pro Tour, and he knows his stuff.
He was actually when you guys were with Face to Face, wasn't he kind of the limited guy?
He certainly was one of the bigger contributors to our limited discussions.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I remember that now. Okay, we've got one last thing that we want to cover here. Let's start throwing these at each other, Luis. We've got Luis and I both came up with a couple of lists of overrated and underrated cards, and I went through and annotated his list for him, putting the word wrong after all the ones that I disagreed with. So why don't we get into yours first, and I'll start yelling at you for these.
All right. Well, the first one I have is Countless Gears Renegade, the 2-mana 2/2 revolt.
Well, do you have that as under or overrated?
Right. These are all overrated.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Countless Gears Renegade is just not a great card. And part of the reason that I have liked it less than you might think is that crewing Iron Tread Crusher is I just feels very important to me in a lot of your aggressive white decks.
Absolutely.
And Countless Gears Renegade just doesn't do that. So I'm going to play the card. Don't get me wrong, but I'm saying just 2-mana 2/2s with upside tend to be cards we're pretty happy about, and I've become less happy about it. Basically, the Revolt is never on, and when it's on, it doesn't matter.
Right.
So it's just not a card I'm very thrilled with.
And just as a note here, one of my underrated cards, Audacious Infiltrator. I still think that people don't play it enough. And the reason I like it? For the exact reason that you said. Yes, it hits hard and that's fine, but it crews the stupid Iron Tread Crusher. And that ends up being like when I have 2 Iron Tread Crushers, having cards like Audacious Infiltrator goes up a lot, where when you look down and you see a stupid Countless Gears Renegade, it's like, this isn't quite doing what I want. Yeah.
And I think that actually leads nicely into a next Revolt card, which I think is overrated. It's a rare, so it doesn't matter as much, but Solemn Recruit, the 1 white double strike 2/2 Revolt gets +1/+1 at the end of each turn, or counter at the end of each turn. I think this card is not as good as it looks.
Wrong.
How good do you think
I'm going to
this card
Donald
is?
Trump you. I think it's like a B plus.
Yeah, I think it's closer to like a B minus.
Okay.
I've just found that it does not do as much as it looks like it's going to do. It's not a bomb rare, and it looks like it's very good. It looks like it's a 3/3 double strike for 3, and that has just not been my experience with the card.
It's weird. That has been in my exact experience with the card. Like every time I play it, I'm like, this card is stupid. They never attack me. I can attack them at some point. And I mean, I've won games just basically single-handedly because this card was in my deck. I think it's really good. Like I would have no problem taking it early often, and I'm really excited when I get one. So I definitely don't agree with you on the overrated status of that one. I think it's properly rated, right in the middle. How did you put taken to custody on the overrated? Like, have you seen somebody play this or something? Who is this mystical person who plays taken to custody?
I think that some people are under the incorrect impression that this is a Magic card. This actually is somewhat more akin to the basic land you find in the pack that you shouldn't actually add to your deck.
Yeah,
no, I've not seen anyone play it. It's still probably overrated because people might look at it or think about it sometimes.
They read it.
Yeah.
All right. What about this next one? We hinted at this earlier, but I'm really mad about this now.
All right. So you think Druid of the Cal is not overrated? Me, Mike Sigrist, Paulo Vitor Dominarosa, Owen Turtenwald. They're just one of the people who think it is overrated.
Owen does not think it's overrated.
Yes, he does.
No way.
Look,
he loves this card. I love this card.
It's called Appeal to Authority. It's not actually a good argument.
It depends on the authority, I guess. But
the reason I do put this card Druid of the Cal as overrated is I just feel like the high end green cards and the high end cards in the format are not actually that great, and there's a lot of decks where you just don't want this effect. So despite this looking like one of the best green commons, I think it's playable. I don't think it's bad. I just don't think it's the best green common or one of them.
So my take on it's a little different. I actually view it as slightly underrated now. And the reason why I think that is because I think it was rated too highly when it came out. I think that we saw people say, oh, it's a mana elf. It's got reasonable stats. These cards are typically very good and limited. And they realized that it doesn't have a perfect home here, right? Aether Revolt I wouldn't call it like a hostile environment to it, but it's also not a particularly great environment for it as you outlined. And I agree with that. And so then I think people pulled away and said, that card's not very good. And now I just think that they're underrating it because now I get it way too late, 6th, 7th pick. It's much better than that. I've definitely found things to do with the mana, though I agree with the general sentiment that the high and green stuff's not great and there's not quite as many mana sinks in this format as normal. But still, accelerating out big threats, there's a lot of very, very good 4-mana cards in green that you can just slam on turn 4 and create pretty big problems for your opponent. And it's a good blocker in the early stages too. When your opponent plays the turn 2 Ether Chaser and you go Druid of the Cal, it feels pretty good. Like that's a nice little power and toughness there that you can use. And, cracking implements and doing that kind of stuff takes mana. And I like, and that's the reasons why I think Druid of the Cal has actually slipped. I think it's slipped a little too far away. Though I do agree that most people, think the same way you do, that it's like, I think that they're on that initial rebound, but I think most of them have gone a little too far. And when I pick one of those up in the middle part of the pack, I feel pretty happy about it. Like, I don't think it should still be there.
Yeah, that's fair. I just think maybe the overcorrection is real, but I'm not a huge fan of the card. The next card is Silkweaver Elite. I only put on the overrated list because I've seen people cast it frequently.
I know.
Which
sucks.
I still don't really get. The card I think is just not good.
No, it's not good.
So I would generally recommend against playing Silkweaver Elite.
All right, I've got some let me do some overrated.
Yeah, let's do.
So a couple of them. I'm going to go kind of rapid fire. If you have anything to throw in here, Luis, just jump in. Trophy Mage. It was supposed to be so awesome, and it does some okay things, but I'm like never excited when I see it in a pack anymore. Cruel Finality. Looks like a real removal spell.
I agree with this one for sure.
Yeah, it looks like a real removal spell, but acts like a shock, like an expensive kill something small removal spell. Universal Solvent. I still see people play this, and yeah, I know the stupid argument, oh, it helps me cast my improvised cards. I don't care. I don't think the improvised cards are that good, and I think Universal Solvent is awful. And every time somebody plays it against me, I'm like, oh, thank God. I have a buy this round. Like it never does anything. It never kills a creature. If it taps for 1 mana, good for you, but you're down a card for that, extreme privilege. And there's so few improvised cards that just dominate the board. All the rare ones are good, but none of the non-rare ones are just ones that you're like, well, crap, now I can't win. So I just don't think it's worth it to play crappers like Universal Solvent. And the fact that I still see this card on the battlefield sometimes just, I don't understand it. Baral's Expertise. This one might be controversial. But
I think that Baral's Expertise is quite good. It might still be overrated because people seem to think it's in like the top 10 cards in the set.
Yeah, that's kind of how I think that people think that it saves you. It does not. It often does not. The only deck I love it in is blue-white. That's the only one where I've been like, oh my God, like this is just stupid. Like I can never lose if I cast a Baral's Expertise. But the other decks, it's just a performer. It's fine. It's good. Like I would play it in my deck and I don't take it out, but it doesn't do what you hope, at least in my experience. It doesn't do that thing where, if you don't back it up with damage, it's kind of just slowing them down and you're not up cards. Like, you get to cast a card for free, but you're not drawing it. You're just down a card. It's like a big, fat tempo play,
I also think that blue decks are just less equipped to take advantage of this than other
Exactly.
colors.
And it's double blue. I mean, think about it like this. When we talk about these pure tempo plays, unsummon effects, cards that just bounce a card to your hand, right? This is just a huge one of those. That's all this is. It's just, instead of one thing, it's 3, and you even get a free spell out of the deal. So you're up all this temporary mana, but it doesn't solve your problems. They can recast their stuff. The only way to make these cards great is by applying pressure, and blue's not great at that. All right. Are you going to kill me for this next one?
We'll see.
Bastion Inventor.
Yeah, I'm going to kill you for that one. I think Bastion Inventor is great.
I think it's like mediocre.
I think the card's very good.
Why do you like it so much?
It's a 4/4 hexproof for like 4 mana. That's great.
Only if you play Universal Solvent. Like, would you mulligan to have those cards?
No, but you don't have to play Universal Solvent. You can play real cards. You can play cantrip artifacts or 2 mana artifact creatures that are just fine in your deck. Like you don't. I'm not advocating playing crap cards in order to improvise, but I've found the improvised decks fairly easy to draft.
In my experience, when somebody plays a Bastion Inventor, the most reaction that I get is annoyance. That's the most, where I'm like, that's kind of annoying. But I never see Bastion Inventor come down and go, crap, what am I going to do now? I'm always just like, eh. And I feel like you have to take these kind of high. So that's why I don't like it. I want more out of it. Like I like Sweatworks Brawler, for example, like infinite better like than Bastion Inventor. Next one is Conviction. I still see people play this and it does some things. I'm not saying it does nothing, but like, I don't want this card in my deck. I just don't. I don't want to play a Conviction in my deck unless I have a SRAM. And even then I'm like trying to live some dream. I don't think Conviction's a good card. I think you're better off just playing another creature or something like that most of the time. Def Dismiss. Go ahead.
Well, I have Conviction on my underrated list. Even though I don't think the card is good, I think it's playable. And I think that it's so hard trying to balance these, right? Because when I first saw Conviction, I thought the card was terrible. So now I think it's underrated because I actually think it's better than that. But I'm not going so far as to say it's good.
That it's good, sure.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm just like, I don't want this card in my deck. So every time I see somebody play it, I'm like, you shouldn't be playing that. You can just do better. Def Dismissal, that's the same logic. People keep playing that card, and I just find it so underwhelming. It's easy to spot. It's clunky. It's expensive. It gets blown out by combat tricks. I just every time somebody plays it, I'm like, okay, you got me. Like you did it. You got me on the Def Dismissal, but like you're probably costing yourself quite a bit by playing it. Greenwheel Liberator I have is overrated just because I think people just fall for the rare thing, but whatever, you can put it in your deck. Here's one that I see a lot too, and I think a lot of these cards fall in the same trap with
look at the gold symbol and like, oh, this card must be good.
Yeah, I was actually talking about the improvise thing. They're like, well, it helps you cast your spell. Yeah, this is Hope of Girapur.
Right, the 1 mana 1/1 flyer that it has this cool ability that stops your opponent from casting non-creature spells, but that's not really a thing in limited.
No, and you have to sack it and you have to hit them.
Yeah.
It's meant to like let you storm combo off or whatever. But, in limited, it's a 1/1 flyer for one that's an artifact, which you'd think would be close. But I've just found it, again, if you play a card against me and I breathe a sigh of relief, that's not a good sign for you, right? And when somebody goes turn 1 Hope of Girapur, I'm like, oh, thank God. Like it's just a mulligan almost, you know? And even though it should do enough, like poke in for 2 or 3 damage, maybe help you cast a spell, but I just haven't found it to do that. I just prefer it to not be there. Lightning Runner I have on the list, you know, because it's like a mythic rare, so people always take it quick, but like it also dies to shock. And I mean, I've died to it. Like I would still play it in my red decks, but I don't think that this is some like bomb or anything like that. What about this next one? I don't, maybe I took this too far, but Mobile Garrison I put on Overrated. I see that card played a lot and I always just shrug at it. I don't think it's terrible or anything, but I do see it on the battlefield a little more often than I think it should be. Am I off on that? Is that card fine?
Well, I think it's underrated because again, this is.
You think it's underrated? What's going on here?
Oh, so when I first saw Mobile Garrison in our set review, we both said this card's pretty bad. Like we gave it like a D or something.
Yeah, D+. It was like very medium. Yeah.
But I think the card's a little better than that, so I think it's underrated. You think it's overrated because you see people casting it a lot. Well, I don't think the card's great. I just think it's playable.
Okay.
And so it's kind of
great, by the way.
It just depends on it's all relative. It depends on where you start, you know.
Yeah, and I guess my litmus test really is like how often do I see people playing it versus how much do I think you probably shouldn't be playing that. And this next one's the same, Ravenous Intruder. I think people have it in their head that like, well, I needed another 2-drop or something like that, which I admit I fell for that early too, and then realized that Ravenous Intruder just doesn't count as an actual 2-drop. It's too hard on the setup cost, and the payoff's not really there. Sorry, Atog, I still like you. All right, how about this one? Shock.
You think Shock is overrated?
I do.
Yeah, I guess I'll disagree with that. I think Shock is a fine card. I think it's not the best red common, but I think it's probably like the 3rd best red common.
Yeah, I think what I mean is I think that people take Shock over things that they shouldn't take Shock. Like I watch people do draft videos or watch people stream or whatever, and they'll take Shock over cards like Caught in the Brights and stuff like that, even if they're in the same color. And I don't like that at all. Like I like the removal that tends to be more, you know, nearly unconditional versus Shock, which is really good against some decks and some cards, but then fades quite quickly. And I think it should just be down like a notch from where people take it now. I mean, obviously it's still a sweet card. This one's just been from day one, Siege modification. Like people just have to try to live this dream, don't they?
Yeah, I'm just not particularly a fan of this card. I think that, yes, the fact that it gets played at the rate it does makes it overrated.
Last one I had was Sly Requisitioner, which is a card that I saw on the battlefield the other day. It's like, what are you doing here?
The 4 and a black 2/2 improvise, and whenever a non-token artifact dies, you get a 1/1.
Yeah,
a servo. Yeah. The problem is all the cards you think would work well with this, I just make servos. So yeah.
Exactly. All right. What do you have for some of your? This is funny. By the way. I like how many cards we have overlap on the opposite side of it. What are some of your underrated cards?
Ruler Maker is by far the most underrated.
No, come on. You're just trolling now.
But my latest draft video on CFB, I decked my opponent by just Ruler Makering and chumping every turn.
No way.
They Cloud Blazered 6 times and I still won.
Oh my God. That's ridiculous. So they deck themselves?
Yes, but Ruler Maker was a key part of it. Look, Ruler Maker's a good mana sink. I like Ruler Maker. I'm not going to be convinced otherwise.
You're so wrong about that.
We already covered Mobile Garrison. Augmenting Automaton and Ether Swooper I both have in similar spots where they're both just good improvise enablers. You don't like Augmenting Automaton, I know that.
Augmenting Automaton is a horrible card.
It taps for mana, then attacks for 5. It's just a great card.
You can't just say that. Like, I said this last time, but every time somebody pumps mana into Augmenting Automaton, I feel like I can't lose. Like they attack and I'm like, no blocks. And I'm like, please just tap your mana. Like, please just use 2 mana to get 1 damage in. And then I get to just cast a spell and then they just can't ever win.
Yeah, I like Augmenting Automaton.
Well, he doesn't.
I want to have like 3 improvised cards before I play it. So it's not like I'm just putting it in every deck, but I think it has its uses.
Okay. And then you said, what was the other one? Ether Swooper?
Yeah, I like
definitely.
I think that's just actually like a high tier card.
Card's very good. Yes, it's very good. I agree it's underrated.
So Bastion Enforcer, the 3 mana 3/2, this is the exact kind of card I want to put in my deck to crew Iron Tread Crusher, even though I don't think it's a great card in general. It's just the exact kind of card which I think gets a little bit more value based on context, while not being a particularly great card to me.
I agree. I've upgraded that one myself just based on Iron Tread Crusher.
Yeah. And then Defiant Salvager is another one that I've just seen play a pretty good role, especially combined with Wrangle. Though I would not play. I've never played Wrangle in a deck that didn't have Defiant Salvager. So it's not like I think Wrangle is a good card. I just think Defiant Salvager is a good card. And once you have Defiant Salvager, Wrangle becomes playable.
What? Man, they're both bad. I mean, Wrangle, I totally know what you're saying about Wrangle, but I think Defiant Salvager is not good.
I think it's highly playable if you have enough fodder for it.
Really? I just have never
eat your implements and servo schematics, and when your opponent puts like Caught in the Brights on one of your creatures, like that sort of thing. I found it to be okay.
I always end up sideboarding it. I just never find that.
I think I'm actually wrong in this last one, which is a Scrounging Bandar, just because I think at this point everyone thinks it's great. So yeah. I'm probably wrong. I'm probably wrong to call it underrated. It is great though.
All right, I've got a few here as well. I'm going to start off with a real shot across the bow here. Reservoir Walker.
No.
Underrated.
Why?
Because the card is fringe playable and everybody thinks it's unplayable.
It's so bad.
No, it's not that bad. I actually think it's decent. I won a game. I won a game today where I just copied a Reservoir Walker with Assembly Guy like 4 times. What's that card called?
On.
I did. I thought you'd be happy. This is exactly how you envision games ending.
Yeah.
I honestly do. I really do think that Reservoir Walker is a fringe playable, and it's. I think most people just have it in the you can't ever play it bucket, and I don't think that's correct. Leave in the Dust goes way later than I think it should.
I'll agree with this one. I think Leave in the Dust is good. I've been playing 1 or 2 in my blue decks and being pretty happy with it.
Yeah, Chandra's Pyrohelix is one that I think people haven't adjusted back for. In Kaladesh, it was just okay. Like it started out people thinking it was good, and then they really kind of backed off. But there's a lot of 1 toughness creatures in the format, and it's not uncommon to be able to nail 2 of them, like an actual card in a servo with Pyrohelix. So I have it up just a little higher. I talked about Audacious Infiltrator before. I talked about Caught in the Brights too. I just think that's better. Same thing with Daring Demolition. Like I think that people have just overcorrected away from removal a little bit too much. They correctly noticed that the creatures were more important than the removal spells, but you still need removal, and it's still quite strong to have access to these cards. One of them,
I agree with that.
Do you agree? Yeah, one of them I really like more than I thought I would is Decommission.
Are you main decking this in Draft now?
Yes, I'm main decking this and Appetite. The first one I always put in the main deck for either. The Natural Obsolescence I won't still, but these true naturalized effects.
Not hitting enchantments is actually a pretty big difference.
It really is, yeah. And I think that Decommission is like a card I'm like, actually, here the best way I can describe it is when I get the first one for my deck, I feel relieved. And that's not normally the case.
That base is covered?
Yes. And I'm like, I will play this card, I will get value from it, I will hit something, and I don't care about the life, Appetite's much better, but we talked about Druid of the Cowl. I think Ice Over's a little underrated. That card's done enough for me to earn a slot in the main deck and feel reasonable about it, and it tends to come around like quite late.
Yeah, you can always pick one up. I
think all of the implements are a little bit underrated still.
I'm starting to think they're not. I'm starting to think
maybe they've caught up. Yeah, that could be.
They're better than they looked. Yes, that is definitely true.
Yeah. Iron Tread Crusher, we talked about that a bunch here. I still think that like it's just much better than it looked on its surface. The key is what you described earlier, release. You have to be willing to build around it. And that means playing some cards that we didn't really like before. Cards like the Bastion Enforcer that you mentioned and that kind of thing. But I think if you do, that card ends up being really good. Carrie Zev, maybe I'm just, sample size isn't really there, but I feel like I've gotten Carrie Zev a little later. She just does really well. She's just incredibly weird in the way that like she's hard to block. Because of Menace, and then any combat tricks kind of screw things up, and then Ragavan is just aggro. He just gets in there.
Well, yeah, Carries Up is good. I think that I think it could be you're just seeing her a little later just because she's like a weird rare as opposed to like. That
probably could be.
Why did you delete Leave in the Dust? It was so underrated you put on the list twice.
I just noticed that. Lifecraft Cavalry is the next one.
I do not like this card.
See, I do. There's not a lot of great green payoffs. And this is a good one. And I found that this is the easiest to set up as far as Revolt goes. And the payoff's very real. Like a 6/6 trample for 5 mana that you can set up as early as turn 4 is huge. It's much bigger than anything anybody else is doing. And against the aggro decks, it's a massive blocker, and it's impossible for them to chump block or to try to stay alive. And I really have been impressed by this card. It's weird because it's so dumb. It's just not a clever card at all. But every time I've played it with Revolt, I'm like, wow. And every time I haven't, I'm like close enough. And so I think that like Lifecraft Cavalry is actually a card that I actively want in my green decks. I don't think I did before.
Yeah.
You don't like it, you said?
I mean, I'll play the card. I just don't think it's particularly great.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, but I still think it's underrated. Reckless Racer. I just think this card's great.
Well, the card is just, fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't know who's underrating it, but they should be taught a lesson. Whoever's
given it to me 5th pick, I guess.
That's true.
This next one I like a lot more than I thought I would, is Spire Patrol. Blue-white has been an archetype that I have drafted and had success with. I think it's very real, and I think that Spire Patrol's really a premium card in that deck. It just is. It does exactly what you win. It hits hard in the air, and it keeps your opponent off balance long enough for you to get the job done. And I mean, it doesn't jump off the page as a particularly insane card, but it is. It performs really well in that deck. And then I like Sweatworks Brawler. I mentioned that. I think that comes around a little late, because the truth is, if I pay 4 mana for that, I'm fine. That is totally fine. Getting it out a turn early is great, but even if I don't, a 3/3 Menace is just hard enough to deal with, that it's always minimal trading and forcing action as long as you're the one who's on the attacks. And if you're not, it's serviceable. And then the last one is Fireforger's Puzzle Knot. I just think that this card has gone up a ton. Yeah, it just kills things.
It has gone up in value significantly.
Yeah, it just actually kills things now. And that's pretty good. And then it still has that ability to kill something with 2 toughness if you're willing to dump enough mana into it, which wasn't really worth it in Kaladesh, but that's just a little bit of extra flexibility in case you don't find something to kill with it, that only has 1 toughness. So lots of stuff. I'm curious what our listeners would say, because this is so absurdly subjective, right? It's like, it's based on our own draft experience and what we think and what we're winning with at the time and all this funny stuff. But I am curious what people think. You guys can, of course, tweet at us or let us know in the Patreon feed or something like that what you think. What are the most underrated cards and overrated cards in the format are right now? It's also very topical, right? Like, in a week or 2 weeks, this whole list just gets blown out because people adjust, and it changes like that. All right, that's going to do it for the show this week. We've got to thank our sponsor, channelfireball.com. Remember, you can sell your cards to them. That's a very important part of sort of a Magic player's budget is selling the cards that you don't need anymore. Don't let them collect dust in your trade binder or on your desk. If you're not going to use them, it's very astute to make sure that you get rid of them before rotation and that kind of thing happens, because a lot of those standard only cards tend to really just drop off in value. You can sell them back to Channel Fireball. They'll be happy to pick them up from you. And if you want to trade them in for store credit, you'll get a 30% bonus, which is awesome when you're trying to get more booster packs or specific singles, because you can just transform those old rares right into new crispy sealed packs of the new set that comes out. So do that. And of course, check out the free content that's there every single day on Channel Fireball. You can find us on social media. I'm Marshall_LR and Luis is LSV. You can check out everything related to the show at lrcast.com. That has links to everything I mentioned last week. The latest depth check video went up, the one where I edited it down. I'll put a link for that one in the show notes, but there's also a link to the YouTube channel right there on the lrcast.com front page. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. It'll give you a notice whenever I put up a new video. I put up every episode of the podcast there, plus extra content like the Martial Law Blog Cliff, of which there's a new one there that went up last week, and then that depth check as well. And I encourage you to check that stuff out as well. That is going to do it. We'll see you next week. All right, Luis, you ready for a little Let's Stump Vargas?
Let's go.
I got a couple of nice ones for you here, buddy.
I just can't resist. For some reason, trying to remember all these cards is just like, I don't know. It's something that amuses me greatly. So.
Me too. And plus, this has become my favorite sign off. Easy, because it's like I can't. It has a certain tension to it.
Well, you get to challenge me is the thing.
Yeah, and also I get to look at old cards, which I like, because it's fun to like look at how cards used to be designed, and we've got some pretty old ones today. And also, you got called out. You can't quit anymore, apparently, because some people at home are competing with you. They're trying to go card for card with you. So when I read the card name, they pause it, and then they see if they know it, and then they check it, and they want to see if they can stump Vargas. Yeah. So I guess you have to go to the end either way. All right. So this first one, I'm not going to tell you the pack, but it says, this is from Lucas, who says, "Hi, keep on the nice crack-a-packs. Cheers." And it says to LSV on LR. This pack, let me see if there's a date on the back of this bad boy.
How about this? Don't tell me the set it's from, and we'll just see how I do.
I don't tell you the set it's from?
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Okay. Do you want me to tell you the year? I did find the year.
No, that's all right.
Because you'll know automatically, won't you? I want to see if these old cards smell the same as the new ones. Ooh, no, they don't smell good at all. What the hell?
They're aged.
That's weird. They smell like just chemicals. Ugh. All right. Well, anyway. Okay. So, but we can't do an over-under if I don't tell you the name of the set, can we?
No. You can just pick a line, and you can guess.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna pick a line for you. I'm gonna write it down.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna tell you what my line was after.
That sounds good.
Hold on. I got to count to see how many cards are in here. It should be 15, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there's no basic land in these ones, right? Okay. And then I'm going to check one other thing really quick, because you know how the cards used to come in different orders.
So this is old enough that there's not the rarity symbol.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. This was uncommon. It doesn't say. All right. Well, I'm going to put these ones at the back because I think they were the uncommons. All right. Here we go. Tolarian Drake.
Tolarian Drake. So this sounds... I think this is Urza's Saga. Wait. Yes. And I think this is a 2/4 flying for 4 and a cycling 2.
No. No. Everything you said was wrong except for the 2/4 flying.
Well, there we go.
So this is 2 and a blue for a 2/4 flying with...
Oh, phasing.
Yes.
So this has to be... So I know, this is Weatherlight.
I am giving you credit for that one, by the way. I'm going to be tough on you.
I didn't get credit for that one.
You do too. You do. I'm the final judge. You figured it out. You knew exactly what it was. Zombie Scavengers.
2 and a black for a 3/1, and you can pay a colorless and sack a creature to regenerate and put a ++1 counter on it.
No, and you're not getting credit for this one.
Oh no, sorry.
Wait, unless this next sentence is perfect, you're not getting credit for this one.
It's 0, exile a creature from your graveyard to regenerate it.
No. You're so close. See, whatever. I'm giving it to you. I don't care. So it's remove the top creature card in your graveyard from the game. So exile is fine.
Yeah.
Regenerate. So close enough. You said 0, whatever.
Yeah.
You're getting it. Phantom Wings.
1 and a blue gives a creature, enchant creature gets +1/+1 and flying, and you can discard a card to return the creature to your hand.
No. So this is 1 and a blue, enchanted creature gets flying. Sacrifice Phantom Wings, return enchanted creature to its owner's hand.
God, I'm getting on here. All right,
you'll get this next one. Imperial Armor.
1 white aura gives a creature +X/+X or X number of cards in your hand.
Correct. And I think you'll get this one. I don't know, actually. I recognize the artwork on this. It's Llanowar Druid. Do you know what that does?
Yeah, it's a 1 and a green for a 1/2. You can sack it to untap all your other creatures.
No.
Jeez.
You were really close.
Untap all your lands? No.
No, you're getting warmer.
But it's 1 and a green for a 1/2.
Yes, that is. It's tap, sack it, untap all forests.
Oh, forests. Okay.
And it just says all forests too. I'm assuming your opponent's going.
Oh, that's very weird.
Yeah. Goblin Vandal.
Red for a 1/1. Whenever you attack and it's not blocked, you can pay a red to destroy one of their artifacts, and it doesn't deal damage in that case.
Okay, I'm going to read it, and because I don't know if you're right or wrong. You tell me if you were right or wrong. Red 1/1. Yeah. It says red, destroy target artifact defending player controls. Goblin Vandal deals no combat damage this turn. Use this ability only if Goblin Vandal is attacking and unblocked and only once each turn.
Yeah, that's what I said. I guess I didn't say once each turn, but yeah,
that is what you said? Okay.
Yeah, if it's unblocked, you can pay a red to kill an artifact.
Okay, cool. Then you're getting it. Coils of the Medusa.
1 and a black enchant creature gets +1/-1, and you can sacrifice to regenerate the creature, I think.
You're close. So everything you said is true. Sacrifice coils to the Medusa, and it does something else, though.
It doesn't regenerate?
No.
I don't know.
I think I see what they were going for here. Destroy all non-wall creatures blocking enchanted.
Sure, it turns them to stone.
Death touch or something. Yeah.
It turns into a basilisk or a Medusa. Yeah.
Exactly. And you're not getting credit for that. Mana chains.
Blue enchanted creature has cumulative upkeep 1.
Yes. How did you know that?
Yeah, I don't even know.
That card's just a jerk, by the way. Dusk Rider Falcon.
1 and a white for a 3/3 cumulative upkeep 1 flying.
No.
Oh.
1 and a white, 1/1 flying. Pro black.
Oh, that was my second guess.
You are 5 and 4 here. Uktabi Ifrit. God, I wish I could show you the artwork.
Yeah, I'm sure I would get it with the artwork. I don't remember.
It's 2 green for
5/4 cumulative upkeep of a green.
I'm giving you that one. Fit of Rage. Wow, I don't want to show you this artwork.
Fit of Rage. God, I don't remember this card.
It's 1 and a red sorcery. Target creature gets +3/+3 and gains first strike until end of turn. It's a sorcery.
Yeah, it's a little dwarf like jumping with a axe.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. All right, Cloud Djinn.
5 in a blue for a 5 in a blue 5/4 can only block flyers.
Does it have any other abilities?
It's a flyer.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I thought I said that.
I don't think you did, but in case you didn't, you are correct. All right. What is this? Forician Brigade.
This is 4 and a white for a 2/4 cumulative keep 1 banding, and it can block any number of creatures or up to 2 creatures.
No, it has some of those things.
So I don't know. I'm conflating multiple cards here.
Yeah, it's 3 and a white for a 2/4 that can block 2 creatures each combat.
I see.
Familiar Ground.
I don't know.
Let's see. This is 2 and a green enchantment. Each creature you can control cannot be blocked by more than 1 creature.
Sure.
Oh my God, this card! Oh, I love this.
This is what's weird. I knew Visions like, bam! I got every Visions card.
Yeah, you ran through Visions like a knife through butter.
I'm bricking on all the Weatherlight cards.
It's weird. I don't understand you at all. How your brain categorizes information. This card. You know what's funny about this card? This was one of my absolute favorites. I built, again, this is when I was awful. Remember when we talked last time when I opened a Lurgoyf and I admitted that I had a deck named Akhan's Run. I wrote that on a deck box. That's what the deck was named.
Akhan's Run.
Yeah. And my best deck, the best deck I ever built, one of the things that just fascinated me about Magic included the card I have in my hand. Yet I don't think I could tell you exactly what it does because the text box is so absurd. It's Liege of the Hollows. Do you remember this card? I'm going to give you a hint.
Okay.
Her ability involves squirrel tokens.
Squirrels, yeah. She's 2 green for a 3/4, and I think when she dies, each player can pay X and get X squirrels.
Yes, that's it.
Man.
Nice. So the deck that I built, since I know you're just dying to know.
Yes, I am.
Was Snake Basket.
Ooh, that card's good.
Yeah, I put Snake Basket, which was a 4-mana artifact, and you could pay X colorless mana and sacrifice it to get X 1/1 snakes. You can only do it at sorcery speed. And then I would play Ashnod's Altar, where you could sack a creature to make 2 mana.
2 colorless, yeah.
Yeah, and I would try to chain them together with Liege of the Hollows and Snake Basket, and that was my... Because if you do one, like if you sack Liege of the Hollows and some other, number of creatures, then you can make that many 1/1s with like Liege of the Hollows and then sack all of those and put them into the Snake Basket, and you've got like 100 tokens or whatever. All right, so how many did you get right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I was a little off. I had the line at 11.5 based on your performance and visions.
Yeah, I tricked you with my visions acumen, and I just did not know Weatherlight at all.
Yeah, but that was pretty good. All right, we've got one more. I teased this before, and I couldn't help myself. This one says, Marshall, have fun for Crack-a-Pack. Oh, this is insane, because we've actually had this for a long time. Check this out. This is Luke and Matt. They said, idea. See if Luis knows these cards by heart.
Well, there we go.
Wow.
That is the idea.
I wish we would have opened this a long time ago. We could have discovered Let's Stump Vargas much sooner, because apparently Luke and Matt were all over it. Now, this pack, which, by the way, they adhered to a cardboard piece because it's so thin, it could have gotten bent, it includes 8 tradable game cards.
8? So is that like Homelands or something?
It's something like that.
Fallen Empires, maybe?
Yes, it is. It's Fallen Empires. This card, this pack on the back, published by Wizards of the Coast, P.O. Box 707, Renton, Washington, 1994.
All right. Fallen Empires is one of the first sets I played.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I'm going to nail all of these. I'm going to get all 8.
Wow, you're setting the over-under at 7.5?
Yeah.
And you're slamming the over? All right, I'm taking the under.
All right.
There's just no way you're going to get every one of these. Okay, I'm going to give this a smell test here. No. Yeah, just old cards smell bad. My God. Chemical burn. All right. Are you ready?
I am.
This is great. First card. Hollow Trees.
It comes to play tap. It's a land, and you can sack it to add 2 green to your mana pool, or you can tap it for 1 green.
No. you already missed.
No, that's Havenwood Battlegrounds. Wait.
Okay, you have one more chance. Hollow Trees.
Oh, good God. In that case, not okay. So,
there's a lot of text on this bad boy.
All right. I guess my over was a little ambitious. What does Hollow Trees do? I don't even know.
All right. It enters the battlefield tapped. It says you may choose not to untap it during your untap phase.
This puts counters on it, and then you can tap it and remove the counters and add that much green mana.
That's right. They're called.
I got the wrong stupid land. All right,
yes,
fine,
you did.
Whatever.
All right. This has to be a rare Deep Spawn.
Oh yeah, this is like 5 blue for a 6/6. You can pay a blue to make it untargetable, but then it taps down for a turn and doesn't untap. And at the beginning of your turn, you mill your top 2 cards.
You missed one thing.
What was the one thing I missed? Is Trample or something?
Yes.
Okay, sure.
So you got it. Wow. I can't believe you got that. Holy crap.
See, I got tricked by the land. I'll get the rest to watch.
That's absurd, though. I'm going to read it. So it's blue. Deep Spawn may not be the target of spells or effects until end of turn and does not untap as normal during your next untap phase. If Deep Spawn is untapped, tap it. And then during your upkeep, take 2 cards from the top of your library and put them in your graveyard or destroy Deep Spawn. Wow, you nailed that. All right, how about Spore Cloud?
1 green instant. Creatures don't deal combat damage this turn, and they don't untap on their next turn.
No.
Attacking creatures.
No.
Oh.
1 green instant. Tap all blocking creatures.
Oh.
No creatures deal damage in combat this turn. Neither attacking nor blocking creatures untap as normal during their controller's next untap phase.
All right.
Nice card. How about Mind Stab Thrall?
One I know. Black
Tadine artwork.
For a 2/2, when it attacks and is blocked, you can sack it to make the opponent discard 3 cards.
Yes. And interestingly, it says if you do so, it deals no damage during combat this turn. It also says if that player does not have enough cards, his or her entire hand is discarded.
Is discarded.
Thank you, Rules Manager. Homered Warrior. Wow, this artwork is horrible.
Is this one 4 and a blue for a 3/3?
Yep.
And you can.
It has the Homerid ability, apparently.
Yeah.
I'll give you a hint. This isn't the first time we've seen this activated ability out of this pack.
It's the one that you can pay a blue to make it untargetable, and then it taps down for a turn.
Yeah. Wow. That's its special activated ability. So bad. Order of Leitber or Lightber.
White for a 2/1. Pro black, you can pay a white to give it first strike, or white to give it +1/+1.
Yeah,
or +1/+0. Sorry,
+1/+0. Yeah, Pump Knight. Oh, you might actually get all of these. The rest of these now. Thallid.
Green for a 1/1. You put a spore counter on each upkeep. You can pay 0 or remove 3 spore counters to make a 1/1 token.
Would you treat it as a 1/1 green creature?
You would in fact treat it as a 1/1 green creature.
Orcish Veteran. You know the artwork for this. She's got kind of like a ponytail, holding a spear.
2 and a red for a 2/2. I think you can pay a red to give it first strike, and it can't block creatures with power greater than 1.
Yes. Very nice. Yeah. Solid finish.
I'm rallying.
You ended up going 6 and 2. That was it. That's
all right. And I got tricked by the stupid land, so that's fine.
Yeah, the land is really bad. Not bad. And I wanted to say thanks again to those of you who gave us these fun packs. I am going to put...
Look, I like the challenge at the end of the show. What can I say?
Yeah, it's good. I'm gonna put these cards in the Crack a Pack, so Elysia the Hollows and a Deep Spawn are going to be put in the sleeve as well. Nice work, Luis. You did good.
I tried.